Hello, I'm Sophie and today we are looking through the hot posts on /malicious compliance. In today's first story, someone wants OP to make copies and OP, of course, takes it literally. I like computers. I learned Java and how to set up computers, but I'm largely self-taught, with no professional computing qualifications. And while I don't work with them professionally, I like to muck about with computers in my spare time. Many years ago I worked for a small business that employed around 40 or 50 people. One day one of the managers reported that her computer had locked up completely and stopped working. The boss gets a technician to take a look, who tells him that the problem is beyond his ability to solve. He calls an expert, comes in, checks it over and says it'll make a good doorstop, but nothing else. The boss isn't happy because nothing on this computer has been backed up and there are some really useful, vital files on it. I hear all about it and suggest that maybe I could have a look. The boss tells me the expert declared it dead, so knock yourself out and expects nothing will come of it. I took it home, pulled out the hard drive, slaved it to my computer, ran some recovery software and, hey presto, started pulling out files. Yay me. I contacted the boss after I'd run it, telling him I'd successfully recovered some 97% of the lost files, including some videos. I asked him if he wanted just one main copy and a backup, and he says he wants extra copies for other managers, so that the data is backed up on more computers, and he'll pay for the cost and for my time in making the copies. I tell him that the videos probably should not be distributed, but before I can explain, he says, I don't care why. I want them distributed. Malicious compliance. Okay, you're the boss. Multiple copies are made. Multiple copies are distributed. I handed him his copy in person. I then told him that I thought the videos were not appropriate for distribution and wanted to talk to him about them. Okay, he said. What's the problem? I had to explain that these videos were added prior to the date that the current manager, whose computer they were on, started working for the company. So, logically, they were not her fault, but the fault of her predecessor. The boss said that it sounded serious and wanted to know what the videos contained. I asked to talk to him more privately and, having done so, told him that it was gay pornography, about 10 or 12 videos. Copies of which I had made on his instructions. Copies which had been distributed on his instructions. He got the copies recalled in record time and asked me to redo them without any video content. He paid me, again, for doing so. The icing on the cake was the discovery that, apparently, it was originally HI's computer. In tonight's second story, OP is told to shut the hell up and to let them sell. Here we go. I work in a high-tech industry providing network security products to the Fortune 100. Think of Apple, Facebook, Salesforce, etc. My job is as a sales engineer, which is to work with the direct sales rep and make sure that the solution presented is correct, solves the problem, and fits the customer's business needs. The job of the sales rep is to manage the relationship and to guide the sale through the qualification to purchase process. It's not their job to be the engineer on the account. That's my job. The two of us going into the account together and work face-to-face with the customer teams. Often this begins at this level like Chief Technology Officer and then works its way down to the department teams, security team, network team, IT team, procurement, legal, etc. I have been doing this job for a long time and I'm good at it. I get glowing reviews from my customers because I work really hard to make sure I understand their issues and to make sure that the technology fits their need. At a prior company, who shall remain nameless, I worked with a handful of really recognizable accounts that I won't name here. I had been at the company for over 4 years, and I was very successful at it. A new sales rep was brought in with the expectation that he would begin with smaller accounts in order to learn the products and get his feet wet with relatively low-risk customers. In the matter of a few months, he went through 2 of my peers who didn't want to work with him anymore. He was making sales, but they weren't happy with him and requested to be moved to a different rep. Normally, I would not work on smaller accounts. Since I was a senior person in my role, but my boss asked me to work with the guy and see if I couldn't find the problem. Normally the way a sales call worked is that the rep, we'll call him Mr. Arrogant, would open the meeting, introduce people, propose an agenda for the meeting, provide marketing material if appropriate, and then introduce me so that I could ask the customer about their needs and goals. And then I'd begin to work with them through a technical presentation. That was the way it was supposed to work for all the reps. The really experienced guys could do most of a technical presentation, but any time the client got down to the nitty-gritty details, they would always turn it over to the engineer. It's the entire reason that we went on the sales calls, to keep the rep out of trouble. It was never the job of the salesperson to do the technical portion of the sale. Never. So, Mr. Arrogant and I go off to our first sales call together. As we ride over in his car, we talk about the customer, the kind of business they are in, and possibly what products they might need. This is all pure speculation. We don't know the customer's problem yet, let alone their network or environment. I volunteer that I've worked with this customer in the past, and I am comfortable with their environment, but it might have changed. As we're riding in the car, he says to me, "Okay, Demel, I know all I need now. When we go in, let me do all the talking." He's been with the company for a month or two. I tell him gently that this is a bad idea and he should do his job and I'll do mine. He's having absolutely no any of that. Mr. Arrogant tells me in completely clear terms that this account is his account, not mine, and he will not let me in the room unless I let him sell. He knows more than I do, and I should sit back and learn from him. I try gently, several times, to get him to let me do my job. Absolutely not. So text my manager while we're sitting in the customer lobby with the description of the situation. My manager texts back something to the effect of "Mr. Arrogant believes he can do your job, let him try." So cut to the meeting. Mr. Customer has the head of security, the head of network, and the head of IT all in the conference room. Mr. Arrogant begins his marketing pitch. He doesn't ask any questions. He pivots over into his product pitch, telling them that they need really expensive product 1 and really expensive product 2. Oh, and they need a 3-year support plan and a bunch of custom coding to make it all work. The room is completely silent when he finishes. After a long moment, the chief technical officer turns to me and says something like, "So, Demel, you agree with this?" Mr. Arrogant leaps in and says of course he does. I stare at the CTO silently. The CTO says, "I'd like to hear what Demel has to say. If you like, Mr. Arrogant, you can wait outside." Mr. Arrogant shuts up. I say, "Actually, Mr. CTO, I have no idea your environment has changed, what your technology looks like now, or anything. But I guarantee you that you absolutely do not need product 1 and 2. You might need product 3 or 4, but I need to learn a lot more about your current situation." Mr. CTO turns to Mr. Arrogant. Why don't you wait in the lobby? I don't think you're the right person to handle our account. I'll reach out to your management team this afternoon and see if someone else might be available." Mr. Arrogant sputters and then leaves in a huff. Needless to say, I needed a lift back to the office when the meeting ended. But no one ever had to work with Mr. Arrogant ever again as far as I know. His desk was empty the very next week.